I told you that the first mistake most people make isn't in execution, but in the decision to act at all? What if I told you that failure real, soul-draining failure doesn't come after the effort, but long before the first step is ever taken? You see, most people don't fail because they tried and lost. They fail because they never truly committed to the journey. They dipped a toe in. They flirted with the idea. They made plans, wrote goals, watched videos, dreamed big, but they never decided. And in that hesitation, in that invisible moment of mental indecision, they sealed their fate. Because the world doesn't reward those who kind of want it. The world bends for those who walk as if it's already done. The world moves for those who've killed off every other option, every excuse, every exit. You can decorate your life with positive quotes and vision boards, but until you set fire to the part of you that wants to wait, that wants to hesitate, that wants to maybe someday, you're still dancing with failure. The reason most people fail before they even begin is because they're still giving fear a vote. They're still entertaining a plan B. They're still asking for permission from a world that only listens to conviction. And that's the secret they don't tell you in schools, in books, or even in those flashy motivational clips. Conviction isn't about shouting louder. It's about moving without looking back. It's about walking into the unknown with fire in your chest and steel in your spine. It's not about confidence. It's about decision. Confidence is a luxury born from repetition. But decision is immediate. Decision is primal. Decision says, I don't know how long this will take. I don't know how hard it will get, but I'm doing it anyway. That's the line. That's the split in the road where winners are forged and wanderers are left to loop in circles. It is there in the space between wanting and doing that most people drown, because they're still asking, what if it doesn't work? While the greats are too busy asking, what if it does? You think Edison waited until he was sure the light bulb would work before committing? No. He decided that humanity would have light, and then he failed forward 10,000 times until the universe had no choice but to yield. You think Carnegie waited until he had certainty before investing his entire life into building industry, transforming poverty into legacy? No. He decided that his story would not end in scarcity, and then he wrote every chapter with purpose, pressure, and unrelenting vision. You see, most people are negotiating with life. The ones who win are declaring. There is no middle ground in legacy. There is no maybe in destiny. You're either in or you're out. And the minute you allow yourself to entertain the exit, to make failure comfortable, to keep a door open just in case, you've already lost. Because indecision is not neutral, it is destructive. It feeds fear, it fertilizes doubt, and over time it becomes your identity. You start calling it wisdom. You start dressing it up as strategy, patience, timing. But let me tell you the truth. What you call waiting for the right moment is just fear wearing a suit. There is no right time. There is no perfect plan. There is only the now. The man who wins is the one who moves before he feels ready, who acts before he has proof, who speaks the vision before the crowd claps. The man who says, I will build it, even while the bricks are still invisible. Because here's the deeper truth. Reality follows identity. And most people, their identity is fragile. They identify with struggle, with failure, with limitation, with stories they didn't even write. Stories passed down from fear-based parents, broken systems, teachers who never dreamed, and voices who never built a single thing but opinions. But the man who wins, he writes his own story. He names himself. He doesn't wait to feel powerful. He declares it and then makes the world adjust. He says, this is who I am. Not softly, not timidly, but with the kind of boldness that leaves no oxygen for retreat. He speaks it again, and again, and again, until belief is not something he waits to feel, but something he installs through repetition. Because that's how every great man in history did it. Not with perfection, not with certainty, but with repetition. They out-repeated the voices of doubt. They trained the mind like a soldier. Wake up, report for duty, repeat the mission. Lincoln didn't write the Emancipation Proclamation because it was safe. He wrote it because it was right. And then he read it aloud, declared it to the world, while half the country wanted his head on a pike. That's what courage looks like. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to lead anyway. But most people never get there. They stay in the place before beginning. They live in the draft folder of their own life great ideas, great intentions, great excuses, all waiting for the right time. But the graveyard is full of people who waited for the right time. And history is written by those who acted when it wasn't. So I ask you now, what have you not begun? What conversation, what mission, what calling, what version of you is still locked behind the gate of almost? Because until you begin, your life is still a theory. And the clock does not wait for your confidence to catch up. It moves, with or without you. So will you move with it? Will you step forward, even if your voice shakes? Will you begin while the crowd is quiet? Because that's when most people fail before they start. But you don't have to be most people. Most people fail because they wait for external validation before they allow internal conviction. They wait for applause before they speak the dream. They wait for momentum before they start moving. They wait for the world to hand them permission slips when the truth is, no one is coming to crown you king. You must crown yourself. The man who changes everything is the man who begins without agreement. He starts when no one believes, because he believes enough for all of them. He takes the step with empty hands and full faith. That's the man who builds legacy. That's the man the world remembers, not because he was guaranteed success, but because he refused to negotiate with fear. Look back at every name etched into the stone of history, every builder, every thinker, every revolutionary. They all have one thing in common. They moved first. They walked when others paused. They built when others waited. They spoke while others rehearsed. And the result? The world followed them. Not because they were perfect, but because they were decided. That's what separates the great from the forgotten. It's not money, not luck, not timing. It's decision followed by relentless, disciplined action. Most people don't fail because they don't have talent. They fail because they confuse preparation with progress. They read books, watch videos, draft goals, but they never step into the arena. They never hear the echo of their own voice calling into the void. I'm here. I've started. Because that moment, that line crossed is terrifying. But it's also sacred. That is the moment the universe begins listening. That's the second you activate what Earl Nightingale called the strangest secret. You become what you think about, not what you wish about, not what you talk about, not what you journal, what you think about. But here's what he left between the lines: your dominant thought must be backed by dominant motion. A thought without movement is just fantasy. But a thought married to motion becomes identity. And identity is power. You must become the man who begins, the man who finishes, the man who follows through. Not when it's convenient, but especially when it's not. Discipline doesn't show up when motivation does. Discipline shows up when motivation says, keep going anyway. You think Carnegie always felt like showing up at dawn? You think Ford never wanted to quit when they laughed at his engine dreams? You think Lincoln never wanted to fold under the weight of a nation tearing itself apart? Of course they did. But they kept moving because they had decided long before the pain showed up that pain would not decide for them. That's the difference. Most people let emotion drive the wheel. The elite let discipline grab the keys. And while the world was asking, should I go left or right, they were already down the road building cities no one else had even dreamed. Because they began. The truth is simple. You do not need more time. You need more clarity. You do not need more support. You need more fire. And fire doesn't come from podcasts or pep talks. It comes from setting a date, circling the calendar, looking your fear in the face and saying, you've had your turn, now it's mine. That is the line. You either cross it or you explain your hesitation to a mirror for the rest of your life. And let me be even more direct. Most people never become dangerous to their environment because they are still trying to be liked by it. But liked men don't change the world. Decided men do. And when you decide, really decide, something begins to shift. You start walking differently. Your eyes sharpen. Your energy becomes magnetic. Why? Because conviction is rare. And in a world of people who are thinking about it, the man who already moved becomes a leader by default. That's what action does. It separates the wishers from the warriors. It splits the air like a sword and demands that everything adjust to the new vibration. And that vibration is this: I'm not here to try, I'm here to do. Say it again. I'm not here to try. I'm here to do. To decide. To begin. To move before I feel ready. To act like the outcome is already mine because I've already claimed the identity of the man who wins.